An Asian-led drama about racism in the American dream. Let's talk about A Great Divide. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Past, and I'm here to talk about A Great Divide, which comes to digital on November 26, 2024. It is a new drama that deals with racism and the American dream. It is set in a very beautiful place. It was filmed in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I'm wearing my best Wyoming Midwest shirt to I don't know, get in character for it. But is this story one worth watching? My hot take is I think you should watch it later. Wait for it to come to streaming, maybe on demand if the price is right. But overall, I mean, I liked a lot about this movie. I think it has a solid message, a beautiful setting, and a great cast that make for a drama that has some really great moments, but at times also feels a little bit corny and manufactured. So I enjoyed a lot about it, and I definitely am glad that it was made. But I think you should maybe wait to watch it, maybe wait for it to come to streaming, or if the price is right for on demand or digital, check it out then. So all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free. Let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in A Great Divide, you have the Lee family who have left the Bay Area for a fresh start in rural Wyoming. Isaac has just gotten a new job, and his boss is letting him stay in her beautiful house in rural Wyoming. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous setting. And it seems like this is an American dream. They're getting a fresh start. They're going to kind of see a new town. But when they get there, they start to feel like maybe they're not actually welcome there. So things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the setting. Gosh, it's a beautiful setting. It makes me want to go to Wyoming. I've never been to Wyoming, but this looks amazing. Just beautiful, beautiful country. The house is just like a work of art, like all wood, dark wood, stone, and just windows all around. It is like a masterpiece. Everything about this is just beautiful and makes you kind of want to go explore the great outdoors. The second thing I love the core message. I mean, it's sadly still timely. It's a good message about racism and kind of finding your place in this world. And unfortunately, it's one that still kind of has to be taught because racism in general is on the rise, Asian hate is on the rise, and so this film is sadly timely, even though it probably shouldn't be. And the last thing I love the cast. You have a fantastic cast. I mean, a who's who of Asian actors. You've got Emerson Min, Jae-soo Park, Ken Jeong, Miya Cech, and then also Margaret Cho makes a very brief appearance. So you have just an amazing cast, a fantastic cast. I was going to pick and choose an ideal Asian family. I love every one of them. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, there's some corny writing. I mean, it has some great moments. There's a speech later on that is really, really good. There's an essay that's written eventually that's really, really good. But some of the writing feels a little bit corny, feels a little bit I don't know, too obvious or whatnot. It's fine. It gets the point across, but it's not the tightest writing. Second thing I didn't love as much. I'll call it non-convincing drama. The drama feels a little manufactured, but maybe that is just my perspective. I haven't grown up in rural America. I mean, I spent some time in some rural places, but not a ton. So it felt a little bit too manufactured, too kind of brutal. I wish it was a little bit more subtle. But again, I haven't experienced these places. So maybe this is actually how it is. Maybe this is how it's like. And I'm just in places where subtle racism is more common than full-on racism. So to me, it felt a little manufactured, but again, it might just be my perspective where I've grown up and things like that. And the last thing I didn't love as much, there's a pretty obvious reveal. It's an obvious reveal at the end, but you are fairly certain I was fairly certain from the start what was going to happen. So again, not a big deal, but overall, I liked a lot about A Great Divide. I think you should eventually check it out. Just maybe wait for it to come to streaming or on demand, but it comes out on November 26, 2024. If you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So in A Great Divide, you have the Lee family. They are relocating to Wyoming. Isaac, the father, just got a new job, and his employer, played by Margaret Cho, she has a very brief appearance, is letting them stay in her beautiful house, letting them use her car while they get settled and while they get acclimated here. So it seems like a picturesque start to the American dream. They are in this new place. It's a fresh new start for them. Beautiful house, wonderful surrounding. But there are some cracks both in the family and also in the environment that they are in. In the family, it seems like Benji, the son, is dealing with some issues. They don't really go into it much, but at some point Jenna mentions that this will be a good place for a fresh new start for Benji. So it seems like Maybe there were some issues at school. Maybe there were some other things that happened. You don't really know at the start, but something is going on with Benji. And also, it seems like the family has some financial trouble. I don't know if that's because of this new job that Isaac took. Maybe it seems like it's a big job. It's a big opportunity. You'd think that they would be fine financially, but they are always worried about costs, always worried about expenses and things like that. And everyone in the town thinks that they're rich because they're living in this beautiful mansion up on this hill. They're driving a nice car, but all that is provided by their employer. People in town know that, so they kind of treat them as these rich interlopers who are coming into their town and just kind of like flaunting their money. They're not, but again, it's all about perceptions. Now, they also get some negative experiences in the town. They get certain racist encounters. Various people tell them they should like go home, learn to drive. They don't like that they're coming in here and buying up all of this land that used to be theirs, things like that. And so they are dealing with some racist encounters externally and also dealing with some family issues on the inside. Now, so early on, Benji's friend Ellie comes to visit. She was his friend, I think, in the Bay Area. I think they moved from the Bay Area. So she was friends with him there, best friends. She flies out to visit him for an undetermined amount of time. We don't really know how long. It seems like a couple weeks though. But Benji seems very excited about this. He is clearly attracted to Ellie. Ellie is attracted to him. But they have in, K-drama, most Asian drama type situations, they have a lot of tension, but they don't act on it because they are unsure of their feelings. So they spend a lot of time together in Wyoming. Benji kind of like takes her around, introduces her to things, and early on, we encounter this other kid, Hunter. This kid, Hunter, is an athlete. He's a jock. He's apparently very good at some Olympic sports. He's trying out for the Olympics and things like that. And he kind of like meets Benji early on and shows him around the school. But also, Benji and Ellie at some point are walking around the woods. Benji's showing him around this area, and they run into Hunter, and Hunter's getting snakes. And he's like, why don't you go back to your own land? You've got plenty of land up there. Leave this land for us. Leave the woods for us. And he's like going to try to like pick up snakes, pick up rattlesnakes from the environment, things like that. And it's a weird turn. You think Hunter would be kind of like more understanding, best because he'd already met Isaac, but he early on does that. Now, Benji also seems to be very close with his grandma. There are several scenes where he is talking to his grandma. And like I said, there is a reveal at the end that's not really that big of a reveal. It becomes pretty clear early on that his grandma is dead and he's like talking to like her spirit or her ghost or something like that. Although it's interesting because like the grandma reveals facts and things about their backstory that Benji probably wouldn't know. Like she gives him a bunch of pictures and tells him the story of some of these pictures. She talks about like Benji's mom when she was young and things like that. She gives a lot of information that you normally wouldn't have like a spirit do. You think maybe they would be there for advice, not like actual historical backstory. But the grandma shows up a few times and Benji communicates with her, and he sometimes tells Jenna that he was talking to like I think Anma, I think is what they said. I don't know what the Korean word for grandma is, but I think it was like Anma. And this makes Jenna very angry, which makes me think that like when the grandma died, it affected Isaac a lot, and that was part of the reason why they wanted to move because it was like affecting him, and they wanted to like have a fresh start so he could, maybe move on, maybe kind of like establish himself, things like that. He, scares them, they run away, and we find out that Mr. McNather is fairly racist, and there is a reason. It's not a good reason, but there is a reason. He later goes to the sheriff's office. The main sheriff is Hunter's dad, and there's a deputy sheriff named Wyatt that's also there. And Mr. McNather tells him to try to get the Asians kicked out. He threatens the Rangers. He's like, I pay for this. I pay for all of this. So figure out a way to get them kicked out. And then we see a plaque in the ranger station where Mr. McNather's mother lost her life, and it's called in this the Hong Kong flu epidemic. So I guess he hates Asians because of that, because the Hong Kong flu took his mother, and he has had a gripe with them for 70 years at this point. I mean, it seems like a long time, but that's the story. So a little bit later, after some other small encounters in the town and a emotional speech by Jenna about her own experience with racism, it didn't seem like, I don't know, it didn't really speak to me. She tells a story about how when she was younger, she wanted to wear these beautiful dresses, but she couldn't afford it, so she like borrowed a dress from, I assume, her parents' dry cleaning business, and wore it to school. And then this like beautiful popular girl who she was trying to emulate got mad at her for wearing her dress, which, I mean, yeah, I would probably get mad if someone was wearing my clothes I took to the dry cleaner. And then eventually at the end, she like says something pretty racist about it. She's like, since an ugly Chinese girl wore it, I can't wear it again. So she wanted to like throw it away. But overall, like Jenna shouldn't have taken someone's dress and like borrowed it. That's not okay. So it didn't hit with me. But again, I hadn't experienced things like that. So it was an emotional moment, but it didn't really have the emotional effect on me. Now, eventually, Benji and Elle go for a drive, and they say that Benji has his permit, so I don't think he actually should be driving. Like his dad's like, oh, kids are 15 have guns, so he should be able to drive. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works. I think if you have a permit, you need to have an adult there. He doesn't. Him and Elle go, and they're talking, they're laughing, and I was expecting them to crash. I was waiting for them to crash. They don't crash, but he notices a like hay bale, too late, stops, doesn't hit it, but like stops and isn't sure what to do. Some truck comes up behind them, honks at him, drives around, calls them a racist slur, a racist Japanese slur. They're not Japanese, but again, I think it's indicative of the fact that like this person just sees Asians and says some like old Asian slur and doesn't really know exactly where they're from. So he drives away. Elle is pretty shaken up by this, but eventually they do keep driving and find like, find a place to hike. And when they get there, they see Hunter with his dad and I think Wyatt, and they're all going mountain biking. And Hunter, I guess, forgot his helmet. And his dad like yells at him, like smacks him, says, well, you should have remembered it. So I guess you're not going mountain biking. You got to respect the rules. And so his dad and someone else, I think maybe Wyatt, go mountain biking and Hunter is just left there. Now, Benji, seeing this, empathizes probably a little bit. And so he finds a helmet that he had in his car. It was a helmet that someone had gotten him. It's like this like purplish pink helmet with cat ears. It's a pretty dope helmet. Like, I don't know if I could pull it off, but it's a pretty dope helmet. And he gives this to Hunter. He goes up to Hunter. He's like, hey, like, here, you can use this if you want. And Hunter looks at it. He looks a little upset. But Benji's like, no, you can rock it. It's fine. And so Hunter puts it on. He's like, yeah, whatever. That's cool. And he goes biking. So this is like the first cracking of like Hunter and Benji's like cold exterior. Now, after this, Benji and Elle go for a walk and they have a moment where you expect them to kiss and they don't. And I'm like, come on, dude, just do it. But they don't. But eventually it gets pretty late and Elle goes to pick up a flower and she gets bit by a snake. And she doesn't know what kind of snake. She starts freaking out. She starts getting worried. Her wound is getting red. So Benji tries to help her to the car, but he can't like carry her the entire way. So he goes and runs to find help. He finds a car late at night. It's Deputy Wyatt with Hunter, and he gets them to come back. It's getting very late. It's getting very dark. They're having trouble finding. Benji's freaking out, as you would imagine. He thinks she's his friend, his friend, potential love, is getting bit by a poisonous snake. They eventually find Elle. Hunter takes her to the car, and Wyatt's like, we have to find the snake that bit her so we know. And so they're going looking in the snake, and I'm like, do you actually need that? Like, it's either a rattlesnake or not. And like, so that should be pretty easy, but I guess Wyatt says they have to. So they're looking for the snake. They eventually find the snake. And Wyatt's like, you've got to kill it. And Benji's like, what? Why? Like, we got the snake. Just put it in the bucket. He's like, no, you got to kill it. It lost a fang. It's gonna die eventually. We have to kill it to make sure it doesn't suffer. And he makes Benji do it. And Benji's like, no, can't we just get to the hospital? And he's like, dude, it's the snake of your girlfriend. What are you gonna do? So Benji eventually kills the snake. They put it in the bucket, and then they go to the hospital. Elle's fine. I guess the snake was a bull snake, a non-venomous snake, but it was a scary situation. Elle's fine. She got some antibiotics. And Hunter is there too, and he waited, to make sure that Elle's okay. So it's a sweet moment, like, Benji let him borrow the helmet. Hunter's waiting for it to make sure that Elle's okay. And outside, Benji and Hunter talk about some like astronomy, because Hunter's really into astronomy. I guess his name is based on a constellation and whatnot. So they start to connect. It's a very nice scene. Now, everything seems to be going okay until the family gets a letter from the ranger station. And what we find out is the ranger station says that there was a report of, Benji killing a snake and their protected wildlife there, and you can't actually do that. So Benji could face, criminal charges and a hefty fine. But the ranger station is like, we can make it all go away if you just pay us the fine. And I was like, that seems very shady. The Lee family wants to get a lawyer, but they can't afford a lawyer because they always have these financial issues. So it is a bad situation. Benji's like, no, the deputy told me to do it. He made me do it. And, the family's upset with him. He's upset with the family. They're trying to figure out what to do. Now, during this time, after Benji storms off for like getting mad at his parents for like not backing him and also being worried that this might affect his college career and whatnot, Isaac and Jenna argue. And we find out, a little bit more about Isaac's backstory. And their Isaac and Jenna's personalities have been very different. Isaac is much more accommodating, much more like smiling, like kind of blowing off any sort of racism. Jenna is much more confrontational about it. And that's just they had different backgrounds growing up. They had different, situations and whatnot. So Jenna is like getting mad at Isaac because he's like, you never even like experienced racism. Like you grew up in like a, fancy family. You went to, I think they met at Michigan. And so like, she's like, you've never really experienced it. And Isaac tells her a story about his racism experience. When he started working at this like commodities trading place and he started really getting good at like trading citrus. And he said that everyone, would like call him OJ, and he thought it was cool. He thought it was either like the juice or because he was like such a killer at the commodities trading market that he was, doing so well. Turns out, eventually, when he tried to become like the boss because he was doing really well, his outgoing boss is like, no, 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 you'll stay at the commodities market. You're doing great. Why would you want to be the boss? He's like, because I've earned it. And that is when his boss tells him that OJ doesn't actually mean what he thought it was. It was actually a racist nickname, and they called him that because he looked like an Oriental jockey because he was Asian and also short. And so after this, he really wanted to quit, but he couldn't because Jenna was pregnant. They were, starting their family. So he had to keep working there. And he just smiled and bared it for like 5 years until his new boss, Elise, played by Margaret Cho, picked him out and like got him this new job. And he never told Jenna. He just kind of like dealt with this because he had to. And Jenna cries and says, why didn't you tell me? But, it's apparent like he didn't want to put that on her. And so they embrace after this. That was actually a pretty powerful moment. I liked that moment, and Ken Jeong does a really good job like telling that story. So that was like a really dramatic, powerful moment. But now afterwards, Benji's trying to figure out what to do, and I guess he tells his mom that he has to take Elle to the store before she leaves, and then he like goes and drives off without her. I was like, that's weird. Like, go take Elle to the store. But he goes to see Hunter, and when he goes to Hunter, he like doesn't threaten him. He doesn't like yell at him. He just says like, Hunter, you were there. Like, we need to decide, if you're going to be a good snake or a bad snake, because they've talked about like there's two kinds of snakes out there. There's the good snakes, the bull snake, the kind that bit Elle that's not poisonous, and the bad snake, the rattlesnake. They look similar, and only you can tell which one is which. And so he tells us to Hunter, and then kind of leaves. He doesn't like threaten him, which I liked. I liked how he didn't like try to play a hard ass. He was just like, you gotta decide, which one you're gonna be, and then he leaves. Apparently, after this, he might have taken Elle to the store. I don't know if they ever actually get to the store, but the sheriff shows up at the Lee's house, and he's there to talk. He's there to talk. He like basically like again is trying to blackmail them to get the $50,000 donation to the sheriff's office. And the Lees are kind of like stalling. I don't know what their plan is, but they're trying to stall. And they're talking. Benji shows up. The sheriff is saying like, look, like it's going to be your word against Wyatt's, and like Wyatt's been with us for years. Like, why would I believe you over Wyatt? And then Benji shows him this new video that Hunter had texted him. Apparently, Hunter was recording this whole thing, and the video shows exactly what Benji said. Wyatt was telling him like, it's lost a fang, it's gonna die. You gotta kill it. You gotta kill it, forcing him to kill it. And so after he shows this, the sheriff just like walks out. And I was like, okay, like they resolved this, but like there's still gonna be a lot of racism in this town. I don't know how they're gonna resolve all of that, but I guess they at least got this sheriff off of their back. For now, we will see what happens later, but for now, they are fine. Now, at some point, I assume he takes Elle to the store because she goes back to California. They all take Elle to the airport. At the airport, Benji and Elle finally kiss, and I'm like, I mean, yes, good end of the movie, but like, why would you kiss right before she flies to California? You're not going to see her for like months, maybe years. Like, who knows? You're going to be in Wyoming. She's in California. Why would you kiss then? You should have kissed earlier. But they did at least finally kiss, and so that is like the culmination of their relationship. Now, after this, it seems like they are kind of adapting to Wyoming. Benji is like looking at pictures, writing his essay, and they see a moose in their backyard. And again, this is a real moose. All the animals are real. They go to see it. The family's very excited about it. Benji doesn't take a picture. He told Elle he would take a picture of a moose. He doesn't take a picture. Come on, Benji, think about your girlfriend-ish situationship, whatever it is you're in. Think about that. But he doesn't. But they see this moose. It is a bonding moment. It seems like they're all adapting. And then Benji is talking to his grandmother, and he's talking about this essay he has to write to get into this school. He's been kind of like putting this essay off, trying to write it, and he finally tells his grandmother he's done. And he wrote an essay that's about like his grandmother and how she came here with hopes, and his parents, and how they all dealt with situations growing up, all dealt with racism. And But Benji is not, not like them. He is a part of them, like they are a part of him, but he hopes in the future to have like a world that won't be racist. And so it kind of culminates his story with like he wants to, help find a world. He wants to help like make a world that doesn't have racism. A good story. It's a good essay. It's a good kind of like culmination of all the incidents that have happened. At the very end, I think he says to his grandma something like, she might not be with him now, but she'll always be a part of him or something like that. And then the grandma kind of like disappears. I don't think she like dematerializes, but eventually they show the bed where the grandma was sitting and she's not there. So again, it was a pretty obvious reveal. It was pretty obvious from the very start that the grandma was dead. But this is, I guess, the culmination of everything. Benji is coming into his own. He doesn't need his grandma as a crutch. He finally has a maybe girl situation, and he is getting used to Wyoming and trying to kind of like get into this good school. So hopefully they'll be all right. But that is a great divide. Like I said, a lot I liked about it. There's a lot of really good moments in this film. Beautiful setting, wonderful cast. It just felt a little manufactured, especially at the start. So I think you should check it out eventually. Just wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. But if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.